All right, welcome everybody. It is Thursday night, and this is another part of our High Impact Governance webinar series. My name is Tom Miller, and this evening we are going to be talking about, and I'm not sure if my pronunciation is correct, but Dovii no Provii, which means trust but verify. And this is critical for all boards to have a trust but verification process as they are governing their public charter schools. So let's get going with tonight's presentation. Again, just real quick about the leadership program. So our goal is so we learn how to lead. We are equipped so we can advance not only ourselves but the organization and the folks around us, and learn to develop our people, because if our people are not developed and equipped, the organization will not advance to where it needs to go. So our mission is to be the difference maker in the leadership development of individuals and organizations, and we're so happy to bring you these opportunities on a weekly and monthly basis. All right, so let's get rolling on to tonight's session. Your actions for improvement, all that matters. So go ahead and make your 3 notes. What are things you're going to start doing? What are things you're going to continue and strengthen? And what are some things that you are going to stop doing based upon this teaching tonight? Also, time to get good. Get out of distractions. This 60 minutes will change your life. I guarantee you. Will you not only be able to use these practices with the charter school that you oversee, but also in your professional and your personal life as well. So every month you hear me talk about these six specific roles of board members. Number 1 is establishing and evaluating student outcomes. Okay, it's the board's responsibility to establish and evaluate the student outcomes. Establish and monitoring management compliance with policies designed to maximize legal compliance and ethical behaviors. Approving and terminating contracts, evaluating the executive. Oversight and approval of the use of operational finances. Establish and monitor organizational goals. And finally, develop the board's capacity to understand governance. So if you're on this call, or if you're listening to this on your own time through the recording, you are developing your own capacity to understand governance, and it's your job to multiply your leadership within your organization. Let the board member know what you've learned. So in August, I believe it was, that was session number 1, we talked about the formula for greatness for boards. So the first step is always to establish a shared mission and vision, develop relationships of mutual trust and respect, and then finally set clear performance expectations so there's no surprises. All right, this evening we're going to be talking about measuring those performance expectations. Session number 2, we focused on how do we keep the main thing, learning to prioritize your board's discussions and actions. Remember, 80% of your productivity comes from 20% of your work, right? 80% of your issues come from 20% of your actual problems, right? The Pareto principle. Session number 3, last month, we talked about how dialogue is not decision-making. We learned how to lead purposeful meetings because wasting time is a slow form of suicide. Time is a most precious resource. So this evening, we're going to be talking about trust but verify. Okay, Dovii no Provii. I'll certainly send out some of Reagan's best quotes, but Ronald Reagan made this quote extremely famous. And it's the form of advice given to which recommends that while the source of information might be considered reliable, one, in this case, the board should perform additional research to verify that such information is accurate or trustworthy. Okay, so this session is going to teach boards how to effectively identify and communicate the acceptable evidences demonstrating the school's progress towards the organization's goals. Because if you don't have goals, you'll never miss, right? And if you don't verify whether those goals are actually being achieved or not, I guess you'll never find out whether you're successful or not until you get that letter from the state asking you to come to Raleigh. So why do public charter schools close? There's only one reason: the actions and decisions of the board. So the actions actions are considered non-actions. So either decisions that the board did make or decisions that the board didn't make. Now, the board can't make decisions without information and data. When do they close? The first warning sign is the failure to produce on-time audits or conduct basic required oversight. This is a sure sign that charter school leaders are not capable of leading a strong organization. So if your reports aren't on time, that's your first sign. If you're asking your principal, if you're asking your third-party, finance group, or if you're asking someone for some specific information, or you're getting letters back from the Office of Charter Schools that you're late on reporting, this is the first sign that your organization is heading in the wrong direction. So having this skill is going to navigate your organization from survival to significance. Okay, so this evening we're talking about navigating the path from survival to significance. An organization achieves its success in its goals and excellence in its operations, not by good fortune or hard work, but by focused efforts on the right things. All right, we talked about that 2 months ago, keeping the main thing, learning how to prioritize. What's most important right now? So who should be part of this process? I just highly recommend committees drive this work, right? Once you have your organization goals, each committee is responsible for oversight and one goal, and anything that they would report on a monthly basis has to show you progress towards that goal. So you can make decisions of whether things are going well or whether changes need to be made. Do you have to infuse some cash? Do you have to change leadership? What do you need to do? Right. So here I have 5 potential committees. One is academic excellence. One is your financial committee for fiscal vitality. Legal compliance, that's usually your governance committee. Board effectiveness could also be under your governance committee, and school improvement. And I list 5 or 6 types of individuals here. You've got obviously your board member. I always recommend no more than 2 board members on any committee, because otherwise it just really has the makeup of a board. School leader could be your head of school or someone designated who has those skills. Obviously teachers are self-explanatory. Stakeholders could be parents or community members. And critical friends could be a consultant. It could be some expert in the field. It could be a community member who's an expert. We've got financial advisors here who could be your auditor. You've got your attorney. So there's lots of different people that can make up a committee. The goal is bringing people together who are like-minded, who have that skill set, but maybe who think a little bit differently and see things a little bit differently. So at this time, how does your board currently measure success? Right? I mean, look at this guy. He's certainly determined. His success looks like he's just been eating a bunch of sand. Right? So if this was my grandson maybe, and I have not seen him for 3 months, I would definitely see some growth in him, right? From what my expectation is of maybe what a 1 or a 2-year-old looks like, and if I don't see him but once a month, I'm definitely I should be able to see some sort of determined growth. Think of your charter school in the same perspective, right? A board member is not there for the day-to-day operations, okay? The board member is only there on campus for maybe 2 hours once a month. If they're a part of a committee, maybe they're, there an extra, 2 or 3 hours, and they probably do, a couple hours of work, during the month. So maybe 8 hours of time is spent really identifying whether your organization is successful or not. So you need to make sure that there's clear measures of success and that there's data being brought to you on a monthly basis so you can see the growth, the growth of your baby, the growth of the organization. So that brings the next question. What does your board measure to identify those successes? So we always recommend at least at minimal you should be measuring these 3 items, okay? So number 1 is your process your progress towards a charter renewal. That should be progress towards your charter renewal. And we know that there's three specific aspects that equate to your 10-year charter renewal. That is that your academic results are comparable to the LEA in which your charter school resides. Two is that your organization is in legal compliance at the time of your request for your charter renewal. And three is that you've had no significant findings financially in your audit for the last 3 years. So those measures should be included, right? And then the other two are the performance of your school leader and the performance of the board as an entity, right? Because the board is the top of the organization. They represent the core values of the organization. They certainly should also have an evaluation at least once a year. And it's just highly recommended that the strategic goals of your organization align to the charter renewal. Why wouldn't they, right? The performance of the school leader should align to your goals, right? Your goals should be whether or not the charter school leader is able to take the organization to be meeting its goals. And if the organization is meeting its goals, then it probably has an effective board. So the performance is just necessarily how the board operates in the community, whether the board is, meeting their, meeting limits, and abiding by their bylaws. Who ultimately is accountable for the end result? It's the board, right? The board is accountable for the end results. However, they have no hands in the daily operation, right? They're governing, they're not managing. So it's very important, like these two gentlemen sitting in the bow of the boat, that, sure there's not a hole in our end, right? So the board is a unit, right? It's a team. They speak with one voice or at all. They act, one voice or not at all. They act with one voice or not at all. Whether the vote is 7-0 or 4-3, whatever the winning motion was, whatever the, passing motion was, that's what it is. And nobody can go back a year later and say, well, I didn't like that pick, or I didn't like that idea, or I didn't know what was going on. You're responsible, period. If your hand was raised for a vote forward, then you are just as part of anything that went down in this sinking ship. So my partner and I always like to ask three specific questions when we lead board trainings and board retreats. And I just finished reading Patrick Lencioni's The Advantage, and who talks about healthy organizations that is the most critical aspect of successful businesses. He actually made me think of he poses three additional questions. So why do we exist, right? So these are 6 questions that boards and leadership teams should have these conversations often. Why do we exist, right? So that's our mission. Why do we get out of bed? Why do we do what we do? How do we behave? Right? These are our core values, right? Not how should we behave, right? Because that should be the same thing. How do we behave? Right? Because if there's a difference between how we should behave and how we do behave, then you've already identified the gap that's probably fragmenting the culture of your organization. What do we do? What is that we actually say we do? Where are we going? What is it that we do more than teach kids? What do we do? How do we determine success? Right? Because it doesn't matter what we do if we don't know what it looks like when we get there, and how we know whether we're making progress or not. What is most important right now? Okay, what are our priorities? What's our 80-20 principle right now? And who is responsible for what? This puts commitment into it, right? This shows who's specifically responsible for ensuring something happens. Doesn't mean they're required to do it. It just means they're responsible that it gets done. So again, these 6 questions are pulled from Patrick Lencioni's The Advantage, and this is a great organizational exercise, a great governance strengthening exercise to maybe end your meetings with, if you do a retreat and you focus on these 6 questions, or you pose these 6 questions in advance to your board and say, hey, bring these to the next board meeting, and you compile the results. It'll create a very healthy conflict conversation, right? And then so you can always be using this as your general guidelines. Okay, the only things that may change are the last 2. What's most important right now, and who's responsible for what? So in brainstorming and really thinking about this, I try to think about which areas of verification are required to equate success of a healthy organization. And I'm sure there's many more. I just focused on these 6 here, but number 1 is academics, 2 is operations, finances, legal compliance, human resources, and overall school culture. And so here were 6 areas that I believe are critical to the success in resulting in a healthy organization. That path from survival to significance. Right. So you can create specific. What does success look like in academics? What does success look like in finances? What does success look like in legal compliance? Right? How do we define success with our human resources? How are we working? How are we developing our people? How are we orienting and retaining and developing our people? And then finally, school culture. What does it feel like? What does it look like? What do people feel when they walk in? What do they say when they leave our organization? You can certainly have great conversations. You take 6 months of your year. Each month you take 30 minutes as a board and you talk about what each one of these look like. So if you have nothing in place right now, so this would be if you have nothing in place in your organization. There's just you can think of it from a backwards design model, right? So if we go back to the slide, backwards design. So we're thinking with the end in mind in regards to academics, right? So you think about the acceptable evidences and the benchmarks to monitor that progress, right? So if we begin with the end in mind, if the end in mind is June 30th, 2016, what are some specific benchmarks that we can look at for academics? Maybe it's quarterly, right? So how will we know if the organization has achieved its desired results, right? So what specific evidences do we have? If we're talking academics, we may have a school-driven benchmark, right? Maybe we take a third-party nationally normed assessment. Maybe we use the NWA maps, right? Something that can help us define success on the road to the end of the year, right? That summative goal, because end of grade tests are summative. There is no changing once you get to that point except changing the next year. So the 3 questions are: how will we know if the organization has achieved the desired results? What will we accept as evidences of this achievement? How will this be tracked? And who is responsible for collecting this data, and how often will it be reported, right? That goes back to the leading purposeful meetings and designing the outcomes-based calendar. Right? Who is responsible for collecting this data, and how often will it be reported? So these 3 questions, if you just need to get started somewhere, you can start with these 3 sets of questions. Now, there's 3 keys when you're verifying information. Number 1 is consistency. You have to meet and discuss the results regularly, right? So you're meeting in your committees, you're meeting with your board, maybe there's an executive committee that meets with the principal. There's consistency, and I mean consistency as you're comparing apples to apples. Same data, same kids, same timeline, same test, right? Same budget, same timeline, same reoccurring expenses, getting us to the goal. Same legal requirements, whatever it is, it's consistency. You're measuring consistency. Honesty. There's no true verification until people are willing to be transparent with each other. I would much rather someone be brutally honest with me and show me how poor we're doing than constantly beat around the bush or tell me that the data's not ready yet, or or give me excuses, or just flat out lie. We can fix problems. Everything is everything could be figured out. Everything is figure-outable. And the final key would be intentionality, right? So you're living intentionally, you're measuring intentionally, you're reporting intentionally. If you want to be in an accountable relationship, you must be intentionally and build a relationship of trust. No trust, no unity, no progress in the organization. So all reports, so whether they're coming from the committee, from the executive director, or third parties, whatever they are, on time and accurate, and 7 days in advance. It gives the board plenty of time to oversee and to read and to get their questions prepared, okay, to do their verifying, to do their research, right, to do their verification process. Reports should be focused on the mission-based outcomes, right, these specific outcomes that are going to determine the health of the organization, the health of your progress towards the goals. All right, so your school goals are operations, student performance, personnel. Board's goals might be governance and policies and finances, overall compliance. If it doesn't inform the board on the mission-based outcomes and support the board in achieving the organizational goals, it should not be discussed in the board meeting. There's no place for it. Okay, so let's take a look at a head of school report that our team has been working on and constantly tweaking from the school leaders that we have the privilege with of working in the boards. We've been collecting reports and having conversations about what a good head of school report looks like, and we'll be happy to share that with you. But here's some chunks of it. So the first section is about enrollment and attendance, right? So if you see here, we've got our grades K through 12. You can put your active enrollment, how many kids you have per grade. You can put your average class sizes or the actual class size of each one. So you've got 22 kids in one class, 24 kids in another class, whatever it is, and the board can get a really strong understanding of how many kids are in each class. So if they're hearing things in the community about class sizes are too big, you've got verification of what they actually are. You've got a column for withdrawals. How many withdrawals have we had since the start of the year, right? You could do it monthly. You could do it since the beginning of the year. You can make separate columns, okay? It's showing you trends. When are we losing kids? It's great data to go back, so you can actually take a look and analyze. And if you're in your open enrollment period right now, you can talk about how many applications have come in per every grade level. It gives you an idea of how well your marketing plan is working. And down here at the bottom, you'll see highlighted. So I know what the confirmed ADM was, right? The average daily membership, the number that we got paid for. So if I see a total, if my ADM was 792, and I'm in month 4, and now my total of kids is 750, I've lost 42 kids already. I've already lost 5% of our population. Why is that occurring? Why are we losing so many children? Okay, and you can verify by asking for the Power School PMR. It should be the Principal's Monthly Report. You can ask the school leader for it, and it'll tell you all this information, right? And then the other highlight is your current average daily attendance. These two yellows will come specifically from your Principal's Monthly Report, as will the withdrawal verification information. So the principal doesn't have to create this table. You just ask them, can you make sure a copy of your Principal's Monthly Report is in your director's report? Why is this important that we know our enrollment on a monthly basis? Number one, it leads to revenue, right? If kids leave, we don't receive local funds. If kids don't show ever, we don't get any money for them. All right, so if I'm seeing big, massive wait lists and applications, but I'm always below my projected enrollment, it makes me think, why are people applying but not coming? Why are people applying but not staying? Why are people leaving during the year? Why do they always leave after Christmas break? Why do they leave, if we're a year-round school, why do they leave after the first quarter? Where do we see the trends in this? Where's our natural attrition in our school? How can we plan for that financially for the future? Because high school courses are very expensive. All right, let's look at this second section. Okay, student discipline. So if you have something here, you'll know how discipline's being. You need to know how discipline's being used. You should have an idea of the overall discipline in the the student handbook and the expectations. But by having your principal on a monthly basis provide you data of how many referrals came in, right? How many were major, how many were minor, how many days were in-school suspension, how many days were out-of-school suspension, how many times were kids sent home early, right? It gives you real data for real information to make real-time decisions. All right, and you ask you verify by asking for further breakdown of where, when, what demographics are contributing to the figures, right? And you put a section in here for positive behavioral program updates, right? Specific reward systems you're using or anything like that. Yeah, it gives the board an understanding of what you're doing as a school leader and what the organization is doing to be responsive and not reactive, right? Because if you fail to prepare, you will be definitely repairing afterwards. All right, let's look at maybe section 3 of your head of school report. So these are your specific goals updates, all right? And so this is your organizational goals. It's a no-brainer, honestly, everybody. And you're not going to probably have too much data on every goal per month, but you probably, for the majority of your goals, you will have something to provide on a monthly basis. And these evidences that are in your report are what you approved, right? They're specifically what you approved would be counted towards showing measurable progress towards that goal. So here we have some academic achievements. So if the overall goal was end of grade reading test being 75%, we need some tool that's going to tell us whether we're making progress towards that 75% goal, right? So if this is reported quarterly, and maybe I'm using a MAP assessment or an old EOG, and I'm basically showing what percentage of my kids are falling on what level, 1 through 5, And then you can take a look at previous quarters or comparison to last year's cohorts. I mean, there's a lot of comparisons you can do and questions that you can ask. This is really important for the board to be looking at this on a monthly basis for most goals, but probably quarterly for academics, so you can actually make true progress, right? You can ask those questions and make decisions. And this will certainly get verified at the end of the year, right? If the principal keeps telling you everything is well, and then when you come to the end of the year and you're on the watch list, clear it wasn't everything well. Everything wasn't that good. Here's more about your school goals. So this is about school culture. So you definitely want to see active and intentional programs to engage all 3 levels of your stakeholders. Right? So school culture, family engagement, staff experiences, student experiences. There's all sorts of stuff you can put in here, right? And you'll actually find that if you travel and see as many board meetings as I have, this is where the majority of the report is, right? Because this is easy to kind of report on. Little Johnny went on a field trip to the strawberry patch. 3rd grade, went to the Space Museum. You'll see a lot of pieces like this, but this doesn't necessarily tell me that the school is meeting its goals, but it's showing specific evidences that there are things happening in the school, and hopefully these school culture-based activities align specifically with your organization's mission. A little bit more about Section 3. This is a big one: attracting and developing talent. So this is the professional development topics that your school has for your teachers. So you can see, you could, specifically put in here, how many hours of professional development, what's, if you're doing a book study, you could, make sure they know about the book, a little bit about it, how it aligns. I mean, you have the opportunity as a school leader to educate the board, and the board has a better understanding of where the organization's heading, and also making sure that we're staying on the right path. Remember, when we try to achieve greatness in organizations, we have to focus on our people. It's got to be people first. But unfortunately, professional development in public charter schools is probably in most schools the least utilized resource. Right? It's school leaders are too busy. They got too many things on their plates. They're constantly chasing the wind, and the thing that they probably don't get to as much as they should is developing their teachers. And unfortunately, that should be their number one job. If they are a great instructional leader, if they come from an education background, they should be developing teachers, or at least developing their team to develop teachers. Somebody should be developing teachers, because people don't quit companies and organizations. People quit people. Part 4 of this section 3 could be your compliance reporting, right? So you could specifically ask for the requirements of the current state board approved performance framework. They could line them up. Here's where we stand. The last EC audit was here. The last Title II audit we've had. Like anything that can basically get the organization in an audit type situation. Anytime you accept federal dollars, you're going to be audited. So it's important that the board knows that there's some sort of system internally that is measuring the success of the policy. Okay? This is especially great for exceptional children's programs. December 1st is coming up, so we got a head count coming up. December 1st and April 1st are critical. Having everybody on the head count. What are our last monitoring visits? Okay, is anything coming up that the board needs to be aware of? And finally, for Section 3, this is just any other goals, specific to the school that you want to share, as a head of school to the board, or the board specifically asking for. Okay, could be that you had some public comments from some parents about certain issues around communication, right? So you could just put some information here how you've revamped communication in the school, some specific actions, to get to that point. All right, Section 4, human resources. Right. So what you will know is the licensure and the budgetary impact of every new hire, and what are some unfilled positions. So you could see month after month, I'm seeing, why do we not have an EC teacher? Like, is it that there's not a credible person out there? Seems to be impossible, right? So a verification could be asked for the school's licensure report. Right? This is on a monthly basis. This is handled by the Office of Charter Schools. You could compare the total salary budget month to month, asking about progress towards long-term vacancies. Okay? So I love this chart. This is something that we just started using recently. So you got the name, what they're going to be teaching, what they're specifically licensed in, all right, and whether their license is current or not, and what's the budgetary impact. If it's mid-year and the person previously was making $30,000 a year and you just hired someone at $40,000 a year, that's a budgetary impact. Okay. For the rest of the year, there's going to be, probably $5,000 more spent on this position. This is important to know, and it's important for the school leader to be looking at it on a monthly basis. This is probably my favorite part of our new reporting system. Great job by our team. Section 5, upcoming dates, right? So what you will know are any special events taking place, so you can be visible. You can be there as a board member. You can get them on your calendar. It's important for boards to walk slowly through the crowd, right? To let people know that the board is overseeing the organization, right? That you're here and you're visible. All right. So excellent. So just a summary of the sections of the head of schools reporting to the board. We talk about enrollment, student discipline, school goal updates, and academics, school culture, teacher development, recruitment, compliance, any other goals. You can go back to that whole other section, right? That visual with the 6 areas. You know, whatever your goals are in. Human resources and important dates coming up. And I can't move forward without specifically talking about finances. There's 4 essential financial reports. And these are, you know, depending on the age of your organization, you may want to take a look at these at least quarterly. You definitely want to look at, you know, the budget monthly as a full board. I don't have any money, and I look at my bank account pretty much every morning. So you definitely want to make sure someone is on it all the time. So these 4 essential reports, one is the balance sheet, so it demonstrates the current net worth of the organizations, okay, your assets and your liabilities and your equity. Your cash flow statements demonstrates all the transactions for a period, what comes in and what goes out. This is a great verification tool right there. Income and expense statements, okay, makes a miniature budget for the month. And then the budget versus the actual, right? So this demonstrates whether the school is meeting its goals and making its profit, right? And even if you're with a third-party organization, they will produce these for you. Many schools that I work with, you can get all 4 of these from those organizations in a timely manner, and they'll really work with you and do a good job. Depending on when your board meeting is, you might be looking at, you know, more current finance reports. So if your meeting's at the beginning of the month, a little bit, you know, might be harder, you know, to pull all these together in a timely manner. So what you can mainly do to make sure verification processes go through is being prepared for the board meeting, right? Asking questions and flagging any unacceptable results. Don't put your head in the sand. Be prepared, read, research, verify, okay? Ask those questions. It's okay. You're not the only person on the board, I guarantee, that is asking those questions. So what are your next steps? So if we're starting up here, you know, we set our mission and our vision. We've identified our priorities. Okay, communicate with reality, all right? And then we got to adopt our goals. Develop a plan to get there, identify the acceptable evidences, set a reporting schedule, analyze the results as they come in, tweak plans accordingly, and communicate the wins. Okay, so wherever you are, if you've got your mission, you've got your priorities, okay, now it's about communicating the reality. Where really are we in terms of these goals? It's your baseline. Okay, let's get these goals in place. Let's make sure we got a plan to get there. Okay, wherever you are, you can pick up this little visual here, and you can start from that process. Okay, so it's time to chart your course. So I want you to take some time. What are we going to start doing as an organization? What are we going to continue and strengthen? And what are we going to stop doing? What are some things we're going to stop doing? Okay. So I hope this training has added some value to you. All right. And most importantly, the verification process has to be done with trust. Okay. You definitely want to make sure you have strong relationships. Okay, that you're okay to ask those questions, you're okay to ask for data, because ultimately everybody's responsible for the success of the organization. So it's everybody's job to trust but verify. Have a great Thanksgiving holiday, everybody. I look forward to talking to you in December when we talk about where did the money go. Be safe and be significant, everyone.